Okay. Okay. Hi. Is everyone comfortable? Does everyone have a drink? Nice. Hi everyone, and welcome to React London. I'm Tracy. I'm one of the software engineers at Red Badger, and this is Claire, one of the engineers at Deliveroo. So Red Badger has been hosting React London for quite a few years now, but this is the first time we're having it at Deliveroo, so this is very exciting. Thank you for having us. Thank you for the food. Thank you to all the volunteers running around. And over to Claire for a few security measures.
Yes.
Listen up.
I have the very fun job of introducing you to the most fun talk of the night. So I will keep this brief. We have toilets, all right, down there and down there. There are signs, please follow them. If you need to use the accessible toilet, please come speak to a member of Deliveroo staff and we will show you where that is. The fire exits are conveniently right next to the toilets, so follow the signs for those. Please only take photos on the pitch and remain in this area. We're very lucky to have quite an open office, so please try and stay around here. Right, first aiders. If you require first aid, please talk to either this gentleman here or this gentleman here, and they will assist you. And please keep your stickers visible at all times. That's how we know that you're a legit visitor. If you feel the need to tweet us, we are at DeliverooEng, and you're very welcome here tonight. Please eat the rest of the food. You seem to have made a good dent in it already. But yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Claire. So as she mentioned, the Twitter handle tonight is #DeliverooEng for Deliveroo, and also, #React London for React London. Cool, that will come back up. Anyway, before we start, I just want to say a quick hello to a few guests in the audience. So Imperial College London is here tonight, as well as General Assembly, Founders and Coders, Code Bar, and my personal favorite, Node Girls. So if you want to talk about partnerships or want to get to know them, come find me and I will point you to the right people, or just mingle and you will find them after the event. Cool. Also in August, we'll have a React and Friends Summer Social. It will be drinks on Red Badger, and we'll have short intros and very short talks on a few new tech, such as Elm and Reason, or any other topics that people want to talk about. Please get in touch. It will be a fun kind of party vibes event, so come along. And tonight's three speakers, can we get the screen up? Yeah. 1 second. Screen. Stay tuned. Oh. Is that okay? No, I don't know how to speak as well. I need the slide. Sorry. Oh, okay. Fab. So we'll have three talks tonight. The first one will be what I think about when I think about WebSockets by Benn from Deliveroo. Okay, sorry. I will just summarize the rest of the talks before I introduce her. So first will be Caroline. In the interest of time, we won't be taking questions after the first talk, but we will be after the second talk by Azizi, about Put the Fun Back in Collaborative blog with GatsbyJS. It's very cool. And the third talk, so there'll be a break between the second and third talk for you guys to go to the loo, refresh, get a drink. And the third talk, personally, I'm very excited about this. My experience moving from React Web to React Native, Red Badger actually just built a React Native app that is now in the App Store with Pride London. So it's for the festival coming up in July for the parade. So on the day you can download the app, find out all the events and things that are happening, the parade route, all the information that you need. So it's something that I worked on, and being a React developer myself, my first time on React Native, so I'm personally very excited about this, so I look forward to it. Stefano? Okay, so without further ado, to introduce Caroline Benn, my very good friend and my very good mentor, to talk about what I think about when I think about WebSockets. Oh, thank you.
Hi everyone, can you all hear me? Yeah, cool. My notes aren't on the screen, so just bear with 1 second. Hey, can you get my notes up on there? Yes. Okay. Smooth start. One bit to go. Aha, here we go. So, good evening and welcome to the React London Meetup. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. My name is Caroline Benn. And I'm a software engineer on the consumer experience team here at Deliveroo. And I'm here to talk about what I think about when I think about WebSockets. I've also heard people, I've heard people exclaim, what is a consumer experience team and what do they do? So, ladies and gentlemen, if you will, may I see a show of hands for anyone who's ever ordered from Deliveroo? Nice. Has anyone ever seen the super cool order tracker once you place your order on the website or on the app? That's us. What about if you've ever needed to contact customer services about an issue or a query of any kind? Okay. We take care of that too. So the consumer experience team, more commonly known as the CX team, who are all sitting over there, they look after two parts of the Deliveroo experience. The things you would have seen as consumers would be all the cool order status related stuff. You know, from when your order is being prepared to the push notifications that you get to let you know that your rider's name is so-and-so and they're on the way to the restaurant and they've picked up your food and you can track them with a map. I'd say that's pretty cool. So I'd always hope this is never the case, but what if you had an issue with your order? If it were cold. Or perhaps there's a thick, melted layer of cheddar cheese when actually you are allergic to dairy. Or perhaps worse of all, your food simply didn't turn up. That's where we come in. Whoops. Pardon me. So, what is a WebSocket? Bit of a jump, I know. But I remember being 12 years old and joining an HTTP-based chat room, if anyone remembers them, where you'd load a page and see about 15 or 20 messages on the screen. You need to post a reply via a normal web form and refresh the page. And the people you're talking to, you'd hope that they'd refresh the page too so they could see your reply. And to make this even more exciting, this is all done over dial-up. Also, what I was doing in the chat room at 12, I'm not entirely sure. Some years later, however, I discovered a lively live chat room where you could see the messages instantaneously. There was no need to refresh the page at all. How is this possible? By using WebSockets, of course. So, WebSockets, they allow for a real-time communication between a client and the server. And it uses a different protocol to HTTP, allowing a bi-directional data flow. With HTTP, you need to constantly ask the server if there are any updates. However, with WebSockets, they'll just listen for events. You form a connection between a client and a server and just wait for something to happen. And when that event occurs, the server just sends something to the client. It works the other way too, hence using a bidirectional data flow. A server will listen to the client for something to happen, and it will pass that message on to all the other clients. And that's why you can see somebody is typing on things like, I don't know, WhatsApp for web or perhaps Slack. So before we go into all the good stuff, for a bit more context, I'd like to briefly take you through how our application architecture is put together. We have our client. This is a React app, the agent support app. This is an internal tool that the customer service agents, also known as CS agents, I might refer to them as, they look up customers and they sort out all of their issues and their queries. And this is the app that I primarily look after. We have our API. We use the self-help service in conjunction with the agent support tools, and it's responsible for processing and creating and processing claims. Looked after by our wonderful back-end engineers, and made with love in Ruby and Rails. And then we use a third-party chat provider. They handle our live chats with our customers, and we have our telephony provider, so we can talk to customers, riders, and restaurants on the phone. So where do they fit in? Good question. Why do we need WebSockets? The short answer is we need WebSockets to integrate our third-party software. Before we use WebSockets, customer service agents need to use 2 windows or tabs, one for chatting with customers and one for actually solving their issues. And if a customer were to get in touch via our chat provider, then it was quite an arduous process, by modern standards at least, to get the order details on screen in our React app. How so? I know you're wondering. Well, just have a look at this easily automated process. This long-winded workflow got us thinking, and I'm sure everyone here knows the feeling. It got us wondering how we can make it better. So, how do we do it? We had a kick-off meeting. We created a Slack channel, CX WebSockets, because communication is important. We got Rails' action cable all set up and working on the back end. Psst, what's action cable, you might ask? Well, to credit straight out of the docs, action cable seamlessly integrates WebSockets into your Rails application. We set up a WebSocket connection on the front end. We broadcast some data from the back end to the front end, and we echoed that back to make sure the connection was set up. But in the beginning, it was difficult. Firstly, we looked into packages like socket.io, and even if you've never used WebSockets, you've probably heard of socket.io. Out of the box, widely used and well-maintained packages. That's all very well and good for most people, but after a quick npm install, we discovered these packages relied on the window object. This revelation was the first tricky bit in the whole process, because our app is server-side rendered, and we don't have window when it's most critical. So yeah, as far as we're concerned, all the lovely things like socket.io and WebSocket.js, whatever it's called, relied on window. And try as we might, we just couldn't get the connection to work. In hindsight, though, we probably could have used these packages after all. I've spoken to a few developers since, and they've assured me that they have used socket.io with a server-side rendered React app. So it pays to talk to your peers, folks. So we kept coming across these, quite frankly, crap readmes with one-line descriptions that might as well have just stuck lol at the end of it because they were just trolling you. And I think the number of terrible docs added to this general frustration on trying to sort something solid out. We'd also concentrated our efforts into searching for something action cable specific, when actually what we should have done was just look up WebSockets, because that is what action cable is. It's just WebSockets. Pardon me? There's a note missing. But eventually, we found a package that was available under the unlicensed license, which means it's fully open source. So we use that as a template. This package seemed to be sort of a weekend project, so rather than installing it directly, we decided to take it, we decided to do something with it, so we'd have full control over what we put in. But no bother, because we're a team of developers after all. So, I'm going to quickly show you the file layout. Lots going on here. But the good thing is, just by looking at the file names, you can probably see or guess what they do. The logger must surely log. The connection monitor surely, monitors the connection. And subscriptions most likely handles the subscriptions, no? So, to start it all off, we started with an action cable React container that creates a consumer when it first mounts. What is this consumer? What does it comprise of? Well, I can tell you that this .consumer comprises of 4 properties. That's not so bad. A URL, which is a string, easy. This is the URL of the connection. Then there's the subscriptions, which is an array of subscription objects. And in our case, we need the agent to subscribe to 3 channels. We have our lobby channel for general notifications, our chats channel to handle live chats, and our telephony channel to handle phone calls. The subscription is made up of 2 arguments. Some parameters, like so, your channel name, lobby channel, your channel prefix, which we use to distinguish between our staging and production environments, and an agent ID, so we can identify which agent is subscribed to what channel. The subscription also takes a mix-in, like so, which is simply made up of 3 functions. Connected, received, disconnected. What do we do when we connect? What do we do when we disconnect? When we receive the data, we dispatch an action that handles that data. Easy. But no, let's not forget the connection. Every time a connection is made, we need to check if there is an existing WebSocket connection. And if there is one, we need to check if it's already open. So we'll check if the socket is alive. And if it is, it'll throw an error at you. Existing connection must be closed before connecting. Makes sense? But if the connection is not open, then we can finally do what we set out to do from the very beginning, create a new WebSocket. Hurrah! At long last, we have finally set it all up and we are connected. But I'd hate to break it to you, it's not over yet. Remember, we have 4 properties, we have that 4th one. This is the connection monitor. But to be quite honest with you, we don't have enough time in the world to go through this tonight, so I'll share with you the briefest of overviews. But all you need to know is how to handle stale connections, various statuses, the stale threshold, when you know when to sort of disconnect everything, things like pinging and polling and all these event handlers. But this is all on the internet, you can research that yourself. So there we have it. Everything really is actually set up now. But it's quite hard to know, if everything's working until it is all set up. And there's a lot of code in there. So how do we use them? Remember those 8 steps an agent had to do before we integrated the WebSockets? Well, we got that number down to 2. That's 75% less clicks for an agent to deal with than before. And there's no need for an agent to say, just hang on a second whilst I find your order, because it's all done automatically. The workflow is simply far more efficient. We haven't been able to integrate our chat and telephony providers entirely yet, as we need to answer calls and messages via the providers' websites, but the overall workflow is a damn sight better than it used to be. So within our tool, we have a pop-up phone component, as you can see down here on the left-hand side. It waits for a call to come in. When a call is incoming, be it a rider, a customer, or a restaurant, a post request is sent from the API with the telephone number and the payload. An API essentially forwards that phone number to our React app via, you guessed it, WebSockets, along with some call data, which allows the front end to then render an incoming phone call status. That's pretty cool. So when the agent accepts the phone call via the telephony provider's website, so when they have accepted it, another, you guessed it, post request is made to our API with some more data like accepted, true. In turn, our API creates what we like to call an interaction, which means any contact between the customer and customer services. And it sends all the information about that customer to the front end via WebSockets, ready for us to display to the agent. We also display the name of the customer the agent's speaking to in the pop-up. Once the customer either hangs up or the agent hangs up on them, we have a final post request, letting us know the call's been terminated. API does some sort of magic and then sends some data via WebSockets to let us know that the call has been cancelled and we can show our waiting for call state once more. So integrating with our chat provider is a very similar kind of vibe. So when the customer first clicks on the live chat through the app or on the website, they write their query. Yeah, my veggie burger was missing from my order, can you help? And this is routed to an agent within the chat provider's application. And once the agent replies to that, you know what's coming? A post request is made from the chat provider to our API, which then, with the customer email and the agent ID, figures out who it is and sends it down the line to the front-end app. On the front end, it looks a bit like this. So here we are, helping a very, very loyal customer. But their ramen is a bit cold as their order was 30 minutes late. Once the front end receives the new data from the WebSocket event, it creates a new tab in the sidebar. And the till notification next to it to let the agent know that this is new. This is a new interaction. So when the agent selects the tab, all the information about that customer and that order is already pre-populated, so they don't have to confirm anything. And of course, the notification disappears. Back on the other side, if the customer writes, say, I don't know, 4 messages, then all the same thing happens, and we'll display a number 4 to let the agent know that person has written 4 things, just like any other messaging app ever created. So what else do we use them for? We use continuous integration with Deliveroo. I'm sure many of you do. The agent school app is no different. We probably release between 2, 6, maybe more versions of our tool every day. And we release for a multitude of reasons, such as bug fixes or minor patches or major version upgrades or just like a small copy change. Yeah, you name it, we'll release it. And until we had completed all our WebSocket work, we relied on the communication between us. And by us, I mean our team and our product marketing managers and the global CS managers based in all 4 corners of the globe. And we had to let them know that a new version had been released. And that their agents then had to refresh the page in order to get the newest version. And although we had various channels to do this, like Slack or Workplace, the message didn't always get through, and some agents were left behind a little bit. But now, due to our lovely, lovely WebSockets, we can detect if there's a new version. And at the moment, our general lobby channel is only being used to announce new versions. So if the backend detects a change via our other app, which is a release managing software app, then it will send us a WebSocket to let us know there's a new version, and that will trigger this delightful banner. A new versions of the tools being available, please refresh. Likewise, if the connection drops, it will attempt to reopen the connection, but if the stale threshold timer, which we saw very briefly on that slide earlier, reaches 12 seconds, then it will display an amber warning. Sorry, we're experiencing an issue now. Please refresh. And if something's gone terribly, terribly wrong, and you get 401 from the API, then a red alert will appear. An error has occurred, and you have been logged out. Refresh. So when should you use WebSockets? I'd say use them when they're appropriate. For things like real-time messaging. Why not make some sort of, silly messaging app like this, which I made like 2 years ago. Why not do it this weekend when you're just sitting at home watching the football? You should host your creation on something like a free Heroku server and tweet me the link, because I'd love to see what you come up with. And finally, now that I've worked with them, what do I think about when I think about WebSockets? Well, I'll be the first to admit it has been a roller coaster of a ride trying to get WebSockets to work in a production environment. But reflecting upon the work that we have done and seeing how much of an impact it's made to our agents and how they operate on a daily basis, and knowing that implementing WebSockets has made finding a customer and their order up to 75% more efficient, well, tell me where I can buy a ticket, because I will ride that roller coaster all over again. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. So we're going to go straight into the second talk. But if you're passionate about WebSockets, please find Caroline during the break or afterwards, because I know she'll love to have a chat about it. So without further ado, please welcome Brian to talk about Gatsby. Nice.
Hello? Can you hear me? Are the slides coming up?
Yeah.
All right. So welcome everyone. I'm Brian. I work for a web agency called Theodo. We're a team of around 25 developers creating mobile and web apps using primarily React and React Native. And to kind of motivate this talk a little bit, we have a tech blog, like most companies do. But if you take a closer look, you'll notice it's on a French domain, and there's a good reason for that. We have a French sister company in Paris, and they're older, and so we're sharing their blog. But we're running a couple of experiments at the moment, one of which is to actually move to a UK domain. And yeah, so this one is written in WordPress, which is not very fun. And in my search for something more fun, I came across Gatsby. So Gatsby is a blazing fast static site generator for React. That's their tagline, which is actually pretty accurate. And to try and break that down a bit, I'm going to go all the way back to basics, which is static sites. So you should all be familiar with static sites. It's kind of the most basic kind of website you can have, just a flat bunch of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. So my first reaction to that was like, that's really boring. You know, we love dynamic sites. But actually there's a ton of benefits to static sites. So first, there's no need for a backend, which already really cuts down your complexity. And it also means it's relatively secure. I mean, you're not going to be able to inject any kind of malicious code into a static site. Another one is it's really hard to beat static sites in terms of speed. So you're cutting out all the process of actually generating the dynamic kind of site for your user. But you can also really easily leverage content delivery networks. So no matter where your users are in the world, they can, no matter where they are in the world, they can load the site really quickly with really low latency. This makes it reliable as well, because if one of the nodes goes down, you have the rest of the networks still available to serve your site. And then finally, you can host them really cheaply. In fact, you can go a really, really long way without having to spend a single penny. Cool. So there's a good reason why we don't write HTML files by hand anymore, because it really sucks, actually. But this is where static site generators come into play. They let you just worry about your content, and they will, such as like a blog post written in Markdown, they will take that content and generate the static assets for you. Static site generators, they've only really started becoming popular in the last kind of 3 or 4 years. But when you compare to WordPress, there's still a really, really long way to go. Interesting to note, though, that WordPress is starting to decline, at least in terms of interest. And then also, if that peak has caught your attention, I had a quick Google. Not great. Cool. So this brings me to Gatsby. Gatsby is a static site generator, and it's a relatively recent player. The first stable release came out less than a year ago, actually. And at the moment, they're in the process of releasing version 2. So the beta came out 2 weeks ago. And it's caught on really quickly. So apparently it's even more popular than static sites in general, static site generators in general. Cool. So what I personally really like about Gatsby, where the fun is for me, is the stack. So it's using JavaScript. More importantly, it's using React. It has all kind of the modern goodies you'd expect, like hot reloading. You've got support for your modern syntax. And it uses GraphQL to manage its data. The other part is that it handles performance for you. I mean, it's really performant to the point where you as a developer don't really have to worry about it at all. And you will still end up with one of the fastest sites out there on the internet. And the data kind of backs this up. So we have the official React website, which is actually written in Gatsby, and the Gatsby website as well. And here I'm measuring the speed index, by the way, which is kind of the average time it takes to start rendering pixels on the screen. And yeah, so sites in Gatsby, this is kind of a consistent result. They do a lot better than most other stuff out there, especially WordPress. And that's TechCrunch, which I'm assuming is like relatively optimized, given how big it is. There's some other measurements you can take a look at. So this is the time to interact. It's kind of average time it takes before your website starts responding to your input or your clicks. And again, we see here that Gatsby is outperforming other solutions. Cool. So I think that's enough about that. I'm just going to give you an idea of what it's like to actually, so what it looks like to develop in Gatsby. So I'm going to start up a new project. Classic Hello World. And while that is loading, I'm just going to mention quickly starters. So the Gatsby community, they're maintaining a lot of boilerplate projects that are a really good resource if you want to get up and running quickly, but also if you want to learn more. So that's what I've been using them for. And he's got a big list on the Gatsby website, actually. So that has built. If I go in here, that was the one. And I start a development server. Start building the site for us. And we should have a website running on localhost. I didn't specify starters, so what you see is the default starter. It comes with just 2 pages. And what you should notice here is kind of how snappy it feels. So, and this is not just because it's on localhost. I mean, if you go to the React website, you get the same sort of experience, like everything just loads, really fast. Where's my code? So what's happening is Gatsby kind of loads your initial page, and then it starts immediately prefetching all the sites around it. And essentially you end up with like a fully fledged single page app, which is really cool. So if we take a look at the code. So this is kind of what your project will look like when you generate it. First thing I want to show you is this pages directory. So Gatsby will take any React component you're exporting here and will generate a file from it. So we can add, for example, an about page. We export a really basic component. And failed to compile. Cool. And now we should have it on our blog page. Cool, that worked. So this is the simplest way you can add new pages to your site. One thing you might be wondering about is, here I have a simple H2 tag, but I still have this header, which even has a link on it. And this is kind of one of the frustrations I've been having with Gatsby, actually, is that there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that you don't know about. So what's happening here, actually, is Gatsby has this layouts directory, and in here, it will, there's a component, and it will wrap all your pages with this component. But if you don't know about it, you would never guess from the actual component in here. And that's kind of a common frustration that people have had. So in version 2, they're actually taking an action for it, and they're getting rid of this layout component. And they're doing a few other things to make sure stuff is a bit more explicit. Debugging is a little easier. Cool, so we have a basic site running. Next step would be to try and get it up on the World Wide Web. So we can generate our static files. So this will build our optimized assets. And so we're done. We'll put them in our public folder, so you have them all here. And we can actually deploy that really easily using a variety of tools, but here I'm using search, which I just go into the directory I want to deploy, type search, and it will upload it and will give me the URL. Obscene pigs. Nice. So that's up online. You can share that with your friends and family and try and impress them. Cool. So, getting back to our blog though. So, to actually build the blog, the kind of thing I'm looking for is, I don't want to be like creating new React components every time I want a new page. Really what I want is like some directory here, maybe blog posts. And in here I have a bunch of markdown articles. And I just want to be worrying about the content, so I could have some front matter here. Maybe, what's the date? 2018, 06, 26. Hi, cool. So I just want to be writing my articles, and I want Gatsby to take care of actually creating the pages for me. And the way you would implement that is first you will make your markdown content available to Gatsby in its GraphQL data layer. And then you will generate all the pages based on that. So Gatsby ships with, let me start the development server again. Sorry, can you still hear me? Nice. It ships with a nice tool called GraphQL. So if we find, that's our local host, that you can find under this URL. And this lets you explore the data you have available in your Gatsby site. So here, this is kind of the basic stuff you get with when you first build this site. I think what's interesting here is it's this one. Site metadata, and then if you run this query, this GraphQL query, it will fetch this data somewhere. And we're actually using that in the starter that you saw. I think the layout component is connected to GraphQL. Here. Yeah. So it's actually running this query down here, and then making this data available as a prop. However, yeah, you can check this. So currently, there's no way to access our markdown files in here. So to fix that, here. So to fix that, we need to extend the data layer. And the way we do it is using source and transformer plugins. So source plugins, they will add additional data nodes to your schema. And in particular here, what we want is, we need access to the file system, so we can get a list of all the markdown files we have available. And then transformer plugins are used to take this raw data and transform it into a more useful format. So for us, it would be taking the markdown files and kind of parsing them and transforming them to HTML. And I think I've prepared a project for that. Cool. So I start the development server on this other repository. Go back here, refresh. So here I've already set up those two plugins and configured them. And as you can see, it's given us a bunch of new nodes. And one interesting one is this one, which, yeah, as you can see, it's kind of aware of our markdown files, which I didn't show you actually. So let me just show that to you. Yeah, it's the same slide as before. I just added some a bit more code. I think one more page and two components in here. Nice. So it knows about our files, but the transformer plugin will also give us access to HTML. So here it will have transformed our markdown file into HTML. So now we have access to our content in GraphQL, and we can use that to generate new pages and render this. So the process of creating pages, I already showed you this one. You just manually add a component in the pages directory. The other one is you can implement what's called a Gatsby API. So in this particular case, the Create Pages API. And to do that, so the way this works is Gatsby, when it starts up and starts building your assets, it goes through various processes. And one of these processes is actually down here, where it creates the pages. And Gatsby allows you to hook into these various processes and try and extend them. So what I did in that code of blog is essentially create a Gatsby node.js file. Some magic here again, it expects that file. And then in here you export the create pages method. And if you're a bit confused by the code, it's not that difficult. What it's doing, it's querying our GraphQL layer to get the data I just showed you. And then once we have that, for each article in our directory, it is creating a new page using a built-in action in Gatsby, so this actions.create page, which takes a path and a component to actually render. Nice. So I think that's all I really want to say about Gatsby. I kind of just want to show you a few things. So the first thing I want to show you is how you would actually use the blog as a developer. So as a dev, I like writing my articles in Markdown. Call it new article. Give it a date. And then what I would do is use GitHub for everything. So in this case, I would actually probably create a new branch. And then commit and create a pull request on GitHub. So if we go to the repository where I'm hosting this blog, nice. Knows about the branch. And this is nice because now I can share that with my colleagues. They can directly, review my article and give me feedback the same way they would do with my code. That's the first part. The second part is, for this blog, I've actually set up something called Netlify, which took all of 10 minutes to set up. This is what's hosting my blog at the moment. So similar to Search, they just give me some random DNS here. But one benefit they have is actually that you have HTTPS enabled by default. And then also it gives you continuous deployment, which is nice. If I merge this, it will start a build in here, so we can try and do that. And it's starting a new. Cool. So it's starting a new build here. The other part, which is really cool, every time when you open a pull request, so this is a pull request I opened earlier, Netlify will actually spin up a full site for you containing the changes. So this allows you to actually see what your site will look like in production with the changes that you're trying to merge. And that's really cool. Shiny new art. Yeah. Nice. So the last tool I really want to show you is, it relates to Netlify, and it's called Netlify CMS. It's a plugin you can configure in your Gatsby project. And essentially what it does, so that's our Netlify site, it gives you access to this admin route. You can authenticate with OAuth using GitHub. And it's kind of a more friendly version of an editor for people who don't really want to use the Git command line. So I can create a new blog post here as well. I've got a full chain here. Save it. And the Netlify CMS, it actually stores all of your content on your GitHub repository. So what's happening now is, if I go back to GitHub, it actually creates a pull request for you. So it connects in there like that. And you can publish it on the CMS, which is equivalent to merging the request. And that way, if you have non-techies in your company who also want to contribute to the blog, they can do that. Cool. Nice. So, yeah, there's still more work to do here. In particular, currently, even if you have multiple users, all of them sort of have the same identity. So we haven't set up anything like authors yet, which is a big step that you need in collaborative blog. And then there's a ton of stuff you can do with regards to SEO and Google Analytics and Algolia, setting up Algolia for search, comments, and so on. And there's a bunch of guides on the Gatsby website, and they're all actually quite helpful. Nice. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I believe we've got some time for some quick questions, yeah? So anyone in the audience? Anyone? Going once?
Yes.
No? Oh, at the back? Yeah? Oh.
Sorry, can you repeat that? So if you would want something like search, yeah, you could hook into the APIs. But I guess my starting point would be to actually look at the plugins. So Algolia Search, there's a plugin to do that, which will hook into the Gatsby APIs for you. And I think it's open source, it's all open source, so there's a good, yeah, so it's possible to do first, and you can actually take a look at the code as well if you're interested.
Cool. Anyone else? Yeah. So the question is, can Gatsby handle uploading images?
So Gatsby is just kind of the front end on your side. So
Shit. Yeah.
I mean, so Gatsby is using React, so you can do anything you can do with React. You could have a form field there that calls, say, an AWS Lambda function that then stores in some S3 bucket. So you can implement all of this. It's really just having dynamic content is a bit difficult with the static side. But you can have a form field in there and have a backend somewhere in the cloud that handles it.
Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah.
Here we go. Could you tell us a little bit more about how it works with GraphQL? Is it working like it is with a normal GraphQL server and it's getting it from an API, or is that something that just runs locally and it's Gatsby's way of getting data into the
Yeah. So this
templates?
part confused me as well when I first started. There's no GraphQL server. What's happening is Gatsby has a pool of data somewhere and it's just using GraphQL to kind of grab that data. But what happens is when the site is built, it will run all of its GraphQL queries when it's building, and then have the data ready for your components, and then render them, pre-render the HTML, and have all of that ready. So while your site is running, there are no more GraphQL queries happening.
Cool. So I think there's more food coming. So let's take a break, and I'll see you guys back here in 10. Okay, everyone, get your drinks, take a seat. There are a lot of desserts here.
I had a bit, and then I was like, I'm having another bit.
Take a seat, take a seat.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like, okay, from
Stefano? I'm very excited about your talk.
Let's see.
Yeah. No pressure. No pressure at all. I'm just personally very excited. That's all. All right, guys. Okay, is everyone comfortable? Does everyone have a drink? Yeah? Nice. Okay, so there'll be a lot of time to mingle afterwards, so let's get into our third and final talk for tonight. We have Stefano talking to us about React Native. Welcome. Wait. Hold on. Calling tech support.
Wow. Better? Great. Okay. When I was 15 years old, I wanted what most teenagers wanted in Italy. I wanted a motorbike. I wanted the freedom. I come from a small place. I wanted the freedom to move around. And it took 1 year to convince my mother to buy one. And I remember that day because it's a big day. You arrive home and your mother is like, you have a motorbike in the garage. Now, I never drove a motorbike before. My mother never drove a motorbike before. You don't need a license in Italy. You just get one. Yeah. That's how it works. It changed now. Now you do need a license. But at the time you didn't. So I arrived. That's your keys. That's the motorbike. And I look at the key and like, what do I do with those? Well, probably they go somewhere. So I started looking at the motorbike, find the keyhole, they turn, great, nothing happened. It's not like a car, which I never drove anyway. But my mother was there, could have helped me if it was like a car, but it was not. Okay, let's look around, there's a big button, click it, turn itself on, pretty quick. How do I turn it off? Now, I was inside a garage, so I had kind of a time pressure from the fact that that thing is running an engine in an enclosed space. So I was a little bit worried. Another pressure is not the best time to discover new thing or go into a 300-page manual. So it took me around 10 minutes before I give up and I decided just to take the key and go out, and that's when it turned itself off. Now, what did I learn from that is something that looks very obvious, they are not. So if something in this talk will look very obvious, for someone else it will be not. That's it. So let's go to this. I divided this in 3 parts. I want to give you some context to understand what I was doing. Otherwise, there's no point in the technical part. And I want to talk about how beautiful it is to have a community, which is the big difference in making apps. So I was investing in cryptocurrencies. Probably some of you are, and if some of you are, they're not happy right now, it's okay. But that's pretty much what you see. You see charts, and every single chart refers to Bitcoin value, and it's really hard to understand. And it's really hard to understand, I guess, if you travel abroad and you suddenly have to use a different currency, it's already hard. If that currency expressing itself with 0.0001 of something, it's incredibly hard. So I wanted something that expressed in dollar, or pounds, or euros. I wanted something like that. I want to know how much money I have. It was a basic question. I want to know if before I go to sleep, I should be happy or sad about the day. That was pretty much it. And I wanted to know which coin I have. So is Bitcoin going right? Is Ethereum going right? I had no idea about investment, which didn't put me in the right place to invest, but that's a different talk. So I wanted something like that. I wanted to connect to the website, automatically get all the information, connect to the rate, there is another website, put everything together, get an amount. So that's the first version. Here's my total, here's a chart, and here's the coins I have. And that's not how much I have. Just do not kill me while I go out. Now this is how it looks today. Because after I publish it, people start asking, can you add this API too? And in 6 months, it became 41 different website API, plus a server that connects to other 40 exchanges to get rates. And actually, the server part is quite complex because we need to be up all the time. So the project grew quite fast, a lot faster than I expected. So how did I build this? What have I done? First of all, I check the competitors. I want to know if my app exists already. If it does, I want to see how they did it. In my case, nothing. At that time, there was not a single app that automatically connected to Exchange. There was something which you had to manually every single day add your transaction, but there was nothing that did it for you. Pretty good. Design. I wanted to build an app in a week. That was my purpose. I had zero experience, but I wanted 1 week, I wanted my app. So I didn't want to spend too much time on design, so first thing you do, Google something similar, like banking. See what they look like, get it from there. Other thing, I wanted to be fast, use a boilerplate. Nothing wrong with it, you can always adjust later. The best boilerplate I found, but I spent a very short time on it, was Infinite Red. I still like it, I'm still happy about my choice. So I quite advise to use it if you don't have something better, but it's up to you. Normally, if I have to make this choice at work, I take a couple of days to see everything, but in this case, I have a 7 days deadline. Community. I knew 0 people working on React Native, no one. So I need to find someone to ask for. I don't use Reddit, which apparently is the big thing everyone uses. So I need to find something else, and I thought, since I use Infinite Red boilerplate, maybe they have a Slack channel, and they do, and they're super nice, super, super nice. I don't know why they're so nice, considering they are a company making something, but they always answer to you. Great. So I wanted to start simple. So I downloaded boilerplate, and that's how much I use of it. And I commented everything else. I have nothing against commenting code. I know many of you do. I know many of you like to go through Git history and see the last 2 years of code to find the exact line that apparently you do remember, but I do not. So I commented it, and I thought I will go to it later. And it will be really simple. So I only use 1 file out of that boilerplate. There was the launch screen. And that's how it looked like. Now, this is not a fake thing. I went back to Git history to the first day I committed, and it looked like that. I have a const API, which was my API interface. I have a utility, which pretty much converted numbers to nice string. I had my one view, and I exported a connect with Redux because it was there, not because I cared. I wasn't using Redux at the time. So that was the basic. Do not do this at work. It's a bad idea. If you work with other people, you need a different approach. You cannot do something like that if other people will go there because they will not understand it. So if you work with other people, forget about it, but do it at home. It's great. If you are alone, you keep it in your mind, it's fine. You know that you will clean up later. Publishing your app. So on day 3, I finished the app. It was working on my machine, on the simulator. I was super happy. I will spare you the stories when I ask help in the chat and someone started talking to me and said, I spent the last 3 months trying to make one app. It's impossible. It will take forever. But I needed to publish it. And I never published anything. I knew nothing about publishing an app. So this process took me 4 hours on Android and 1 day on the iTunes store, including the fact that iTunes wants you to have a website, so I had to make a website in 2 hours to publish, plus other thing. I will not talk with this in detail, but those are the links that I know these will be published. So if you follow those links, they're really nice. They explain very well how to publish your app. Let's go to some technical thing. So I work in React for 4 years. I'm fine with React. I knew nothing about React Native. And I never find a talk that is like, if you're used to this, just do this. It's always either this is React Native, or if you're a mobile developer, move into something. So how does it compare? Remember my motorbike? How do I run it? That's the first question I had. So that's quite simple. The boilerplate has npm run start, which just run one of those. So React Native run Android, React Native run iOS. In iOS, it's very nice. You pull up the simulator for you. In Android, you need to upload to open Android Studio first. Well, that's quite similar to web. I find out after a few months that if you just click play on Xcode, it does everything faster, nicer. I would have loved that someone put this in a guide. They didn't. So play button on Xcode. It's great. It works. Now, how JSX compare? So practically every element that you ever know became a view element, which is pretty simple if you spent years studying semantic HTML. Every element with text becoming a text element. Notice that I say element with text, not block or inline element, because there's no such concept in React Native. It's just if you have a text inside, you want a text element. It doesn't matter if it's block or not. Every anchor became one of many touchable things, in which the only difference is they became lighter, darker, they do nothing, they change opacity, fairly easy. And image tag became image tag, fairly easy. So to compare, that's some web with an H1, a section, an H2, a paragrapher, and it practically compared to text view, text view, text view, which make it a little bit bigger. One thing you learn, if an image doesn't have a size, it doesn't exist. Great. But fairly easy. It probably takes a little bit to get used to it. So what I learned is start simple. React Native is not nice. If you write incorrect CSS, it either crash or everything disappear. So slow. That's a pro tip. React Native fast image is a lot faster to load. They give you a fallback if the image doesn't exist. And for me, that was quite vital because I have the image of every single coin, which for a crazy reason I decided to draw myself for quite a while. So the first 150 coins, I drew them in Photoshop or Illustrator, and then I realized I was going a little too crazy, and I just downloaded them. Anyway, so React Native fast image, quite nice. How does style compare? So if you have span color white, it became text style color white, pretty much the same. If you have this style background color, I assume you're already used to JSX. Then it became view style background color. If you have this type color while, nope, there's no cascading here. So if, like it happened to me, your background is dark for every single element, you will have to specify that you want a light color. There's inheritance only if you wrap text inside text, which is pretty much never the case. And compatibility. Now, I started with Internet Explorer 6, probably, at least the time in which everyone wanted Internet Explorer 6. Compatibility has been a huge nightmare in my life, and it's going a lot better on web. And, well, you still need to try a few, but it's better, and you have tools for it. I haven't found any tool for React Native. So for iOS, you have 3 to try, and for Android, oh my God. And so for iOS, I got an email like, it doesn't work on my phone. I researched the phone, and it was an iPhone sold 10 years ago. Okay, fine. On Android, there's 16,000 devices with different screen, different thing, and you can't buy them. So the only thing I did when someone told me it works on this and not on this phone, I deactivated from that phone the possibility to install it. Because, I mean, I'm not going to buy 16,000 devices. I'm not a huge company with a QA that can spend their time. So. But it's nice Android give you the possibility to do that. Now, that's a pro tip. If you go to the Android developer area, it tells you where your app crashed. Now, there are nice tools, but I still don't know how they interact with GDPR, which, thank you, GDPR, they give us a lot of work. So, but it tells you where it crashed. Now, it's not always great, but at least you have a starting point to understand where your app is failing the most. So, use this tool, it's pretty good. I have no idea if in a big company they allow developers to access these, or they consider information developers shouldn't have. If you didn't see these, ask for this, it's quite good. Storage. Now, I connect to API, I need to keep my API key, you probably have a similar need. So, async storage, that's not encrypted. I really have no idea why React decided to make the only and default storage and not encrypted storage, considering where we live today. Well, that's what it is. If you use async storage, it's a file on the device, any app can read it, it's a suicide, especially if you're dealing with money. So I started with async storage, I didn't know any better, and when I find out it was not encrypted, I started sleeping bad at night, and I decided I had to fix that. So I started looking for secure storage, and I find something which apparently is a bug in iOS 11, but it's good. At least I know my data is safe. I prefer up to now 4 users out of probably 13,000 lost their data is better than someone takes someone's money. And a pro tip, if you don't want to worry about everything and you're using Redux persists sensitive storage, practically does it for you. You just say, save the state, that's my reducer, that's my state. Every time the person opened the app, I want it there. Super easy. Now, when I was writing these, because I spent the last few months working in another company, that's what I felt from the public. Hey, I use Apollo, not Redux. And GraphQL is better. Okay. I have no truth. You like GraphQL, fine. It's nice. So use whatever is right for your project. Now, I researched if there's something like Redux-sensitive storage for GraphQL. I couldn't find anything, but it's fairly easy because you write your own local state. So if I would have to use GraphQL, I would probably use local state and plug my own reader from the store. So you can do it. Now, debugging workflow is one of those things no one talked to you about. How do you refresh? Now, on iOS, it's natural, it's Command R, it's the same as a browser. But on Android, you have to type R twice really fast. I don't know why. If there's any Android developer, maybe you can explain later why they make this choice. I don't know, but iOS quite okay. And the other thing is on iOS, if you do Command D, you see this screen, which, again, why Command D? I don't know. Maybe developer. So you can reload from here if you forget Command R. So that's the most important one. Remember this one. And you can debug JS remotely, which is really nice. On Android, no. on Android. If you have a bug on Android, use alert. Maybe someone remember when they wrote PHP 10 years ago and everything you have was var dump and echo, and you try to do the best out of it. You can? How? Control M! Okay, thank you. There was a way. I thought because on Android they had to write their own JavaScript, they didn't plug it. Okay, Control M, great. Okay, another thing that comes with Infinite Red is something called Reactotron, which is super nice. So it gives you the API calls, it gives you a simul console log. You can use it on Android and iOS, even we solved the Android problem. And the most important thing, it does not spin my Mac fan. If you debug JS remotely, your Mac dies. And when I started building on this, I have a MacBook, the non-Pro, because I thought for my back it was a lot better to going to work with something super thin that less than a kilo. It was fine to make website. And when I started working on this, it was impossible. It took 10 minutes to run, so I had to go back to MacBook Pro. But that's to say how intensive this is. Now, there is an alternative because now you can build online using exposure. Don't remember, but it's limited in certain things, so I had to keep using these. Anyway, Reactotron, super nice, and now they added the possibility to have Storybook. When I made this screenshot, it wasn't there yet, but now you have Storybook integration as well, so it's really, really nice. Another thing, common errors, which are a few things I don't understand why they don't treat better. So for example, keyboard avoiding view and safe error view are two components that I had to find out myself. So the first one is on iOS, when the keyboard appears, it covers everything instead of pushing it up. So I don't know why they did this that, but you need to do keyboard avoiding view to have the username and password pushed up. And the second one allows you to work on iOS without bringing your stuff under the magic black part of the screen on the top, which iOS made. Okay. Unclose tag. That's an easy one, because if you read the error, it says unclose tag. So just don't panic. You will see this red screen like 20 times an hour or more, so it's okay. And that's another one. Sometimes you read this thing that says, just delete everything. Delete React Native, delete Node Modules folder, delete every single folder compiled on your machine. And actually it just happened because if you do yarn add or node add, it created a new package, but it didn't link it to React Native. So you just need to stop and restart. Don't go crazy. At the beginning, I did this entire list of things. Don't do it. You will have to a few times, but generally, don't do it. And the other thing is this error, which is JavaScript version and native version mismatch. And the first time I was like, what's going on? And then I realized I had the simulator running from my work project on my machine. And practically this is happening if Metro is running and you try to run a different version at the same time. Now it looks obvious, but it's not. And that's because the way Metro works, you practically open a hidden window in a terminal. So sometimes you forget about it. Maybe you have other 8 terminals open. It's okay. And that's a slightly harder one. So if you put any text outside the text, it crashes. So if you try to do this and you put view some text, it crashes. But I don't know if you can read this, but that's a slightly less easy one to see. Now, let's imagine that I have his password correct, and I say, if his password correct, then show the logged in button. Now, is password correct? Because the developer thought it was a better idea than using Boolean and decided to say true as a string, which is still truthy, okay. But logged in banner decided that it doesn't want to render, so return false. And if the login banner return false, but this one is a string value, we'll try to print a string. and it will crash in an incredibly hard situation to spot because it doesn't look like, and that happened one day, and I spent quite some time. Now, this is not the only thing I learned. What I learned is because React Native dies, and when it dies, it goes to your statistics, and when it goes to your statistic, probably Google decided your app is not that good and starts showing it less. You tend to be a lot more protective towards your code. You use a lot more try-catch. You need to be a lot more careful. And that's also because the state that you save might be 2 weeks old. A user can open your app once a month, and they have a month-old app. They might not have updated it. So you need to be super careful if you change the API, if you change the interface. It's quite different from web. Few walls, things I didn't solve, like crypto.js or buffer. Not everything works in React Native. So not every package you find will work. There are packages that try to solve the problem, but I don't like it too much, especially with something like crypto.js, which is about security. Having a second package on top is not ideal for me. So I tend not to use it. Buffer, it's fine, you can import it, but again, it happens a lot that you install something and your app crash. That's the reason. Routing, I start with if. I didn't care, I had a week. So state, show these, show these, show these. I have 3 screens, fine, it works. Not just works, it works better. It was a lot faster because it kept everything in memory. That is what the routing trying to avoid. So it was great, but at a certain point in the router, I don't know. They practically all have the same name, and use the easiest one. I don't know why there's so many, and if you look at the official documentation, they say, we made this one as Facebook, but there's also this one and this one, depending on what you want and how much native you want to go. And unless your project is huge, it doesn't really matter, so use the one that is more familiar to you. Save state, that's what I was anticipating before. You will be backward compatibility forever. If you made a mistake or a typo, and it does happen, like you type one word in the state, you will either write a migration or keep that typo forever. That's what it is. That's it for the technical part. Community. So the community is quite different. So first of all, you're controlled by Apple and Google. There's no choice. I mean, there is like the Amazon store. How many of you use the Amazon store? 1, 2, 3, great. I will publish my app tonight there. It's still like 6%. So I can add Amazon to the company that control your app. By control, it means that every time you reply to a comment of a user on Apple, they need to approve your reply. I guess some developers screw up sometime and just start insulting the user, so they decided to make it really hard. Google, no, okay. The other thing, no donation screen. I wanted to keep my app free. I wanted to believe in people. I wanted to say, if you like my app, make a donation. I thought people are working on crypto. They might be very generous. So I put a donation screen. iOS wrote to me and says, nope, we want 30% of everything you earn. So I read the terms and conditions. It actually say that if you don't ask money for something, you can have a donation screen. So I open a dispute, they approve my app, great. On Android, there's no way, so I decided to remove the donation screen altogether and made a premium version, which is fairly easy. Like, making payment is fairly easy because they handle it. There's only one way, that's easy. The other thing, no beta. Beta, no beta on iOS. So I wanted to add an experimental feature, and I said, this is an experimental feature. They send me a screenshot, and they say, we do not allow you to publish this app because they say that this feature is experimental. So iOS has quite some control on your app, on what you say, on how you say it. So they get 30% of every payment, Okay, that's fine. If they shut you down, all your work is wasted, and iOS does shut down apps if they don't like something, and I work on cryptocurrency, so it's quite a dangerous thing, and it might happen that tomorrow it just shut me down. And it's harder to release updates. So that's the day that Russia banned my server. So I woke up, and I have a Telegram group and emails. I'll get to it in a moment, but I start getting emails like, it doesn't work for me. Now, it doesn't work for me 90% of the time is you're doing something wrong. Like you have no internet connection or something. But that day, there was quite a few people that were saying the same thing. So I asked some friends in Russia, can you open this website? No, I can't. What's going on? It was the day that they closed Telegram. And practically, because my domain didn't have any website, because the website was in a different domain, my API domain had the word crypto into it, they probably saw something with the word crypto, they decided it was bad, they decided to ban it in Russia, but I had no way to update, because update like iOS requires 3 days, so I learned the lesson, and now I download the configuration from the server, so wouldn't make any difference. But yes, that was painful. If someone has any friend in the Russian Secret Service, I would like to have my previous domain released. You can contact me after. Okay, so a lot more active community. After 3 months, I have over 300 users on Telegram, 891 emails, and 382 ratings on Android alone. So the community is quite active. I've done 3 projects before, and usually I got 1 email a month. People are not that used to send you an email if you have a website. But if you're on your phone, they're quite happy to write to you. So you get email like this. Hello, I'm from Brazil, and I would like to add my reais, which is my currency, and blah, blah, blah. Thank you very much. Great job. Super happy when I got this email. That was the first email I got. And you get other email like this. So my app is in 6 languages, including Russian, which I don't speak. But if you translate this email, well, it takes more time, so it takes more time to reply. I either use Google Translate normally when it's a single user. But then I find out that some users on Telegram reply to other users, which is amazing, because they speak Russian, they reply to each other, they take a lot of job out of me. And then you get some email like this. Now, every single point is a technical discussion about how I show value. So to answer this email, it took me around 2 hours. And I answer every single email. I'm happy people send me email, but sometimes they're a little long. Okay, and you get a lot of help. And by a lot of help, it means a guy in Mexico fixed my translation in Spanish, which is done by my brother who lives in Spain. And other people help with other things, like a guy wrote to me and like, can I do your website? I want to move to web development. And I hate people working for free for me, but in that case, we have an agreement in which I teach him, and in exchange, he made a website, so super nice. And other people like, can I advertise your app on Facebook and handle your group? So people are a lot nicer to apps. Don't know why, but they are. And I don't work alone on it anymore. At a certain point, a friend started working on the server, which is an enormous amount of work. So it's not me anymore. I give credit to many other people now, which is good. So conclusion. Do your own app is a roller coaster. You wake up every day with an email, every single day, or 10. You get horrible 1-star reviews. This thing says your app is shit. Okay. And you get amazing review, like this one, a gem of an app, the best crypto tracker, I was so happy when I got this one. But I got 300 and something, so they balance it out. You have good, you have bad. So if you have an idea, go and do it. It's great. Thank you.
Are you okay for questions?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So a couple of questions, if any, before we wrap up? No? Oh, yep.
How many daily active users I have, I do not know.
Cheeky.
Because I did not want to track anything about any user. So I only know that I have 12,000 active on Android in a month. Well, that's it.
Anyone else? Faduma?
Yep. So how do you use components and reuse components made from design in your app? You can. There's an amazing talk from Airbnb, which are trying to make an integrated system. And there's also someone trying to integrate Sketch directly with React. So you definitely can. And there's also a project that is trying to port React Native to web, which there are two projects. One is the Airbnb one, and there's another one that already works. So you can share quite a lot. One thing I didn't talk about, some components act slightly different on iOS and Android. Like the routing, show tabs in one and multiple, but you can definitely.
Did you try using Expo at some stage, or do you have any experience with it? What's your opinion about it?
Okay, did I try using Expo? No. But some friends did. So it's quite nice. It just works. It saves you a lot of time, but if you want to use some components, you can't. So you are tied within Expo, and you have to detach your app from Expo if you want to use them. For example, when now I want to add fingerprint authentication, that's one of the native one. So I don't know, where I was working, we wanted the security to be done natively, so again, we couldn't use Expo. So I saw it briefly, and it looks nice. So definitely I would try.
Cool. Was there one? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, in my app, am I authenticating a user of retrieving rates? No, sorry, I just repeat because. So I do authenticate the user. I'm in theory able to trade as well, but I'm scared that if I start trading, people react very badly if something goes wrong, and they leave me a lot of one-star reviews, and they get very angry. So for now, I haven't done it. But yes, I can, and I had to write every single interface by hand because no library ever works on React Native. So I have 41 different interfaces for 41 different distros.
Okay, I think we will wrap up for now. Thank you, Stefano. So just to finish, if you want to talk at React, it doesn't matter if you're a first-time speaker or a seasoned speaker, all submissions are very welcome. Please email us at hello@react.london. We also have a Slack community as well. If you want to join, email us hello@react.london. So we're going to head down now, literally down the street, around the corner, to the Bankers Pub. It's a beautiful night, so I hope I'll see you there. Bye.